just, yeah, try not to play, double, and you need to get so free. Just to get it out there and then you start playing.
You can just press the that on microphone, thank you.
I am pleased to hear in your response to my question that Herefordshire Council will invest in sustainable transport. In that case, will Herefordshire Council accept that if it agrees today to declare a climate emergency and a path towards carbon zero by 2030, as we hope it does? It must, as a responsible authority, abandon its proposed Hereford bypass and instead focus on active and public transport with much greater resolve.
Councillor Price.
Thank you for your question and your supplementary question. You posed me personally a very big question there, because I have worked for 10 years on the Hereford bypass and I am not going to give up that work, and the amount of effort that we put into it and the reasoning and the logic behind the Hereford bypass is actually supporting many of the issues you raised in your question and many of the things that the young people that I've seen in these papers that I have given to me this morning. Hereford is in a place whereby we need to grow the economy, and we have to go forward for the young people, particularly the young people of this county, to be able to have a future in this county. And to be able to do that, we have to have the infrastructure in place and the necessary housing and jobs going forward. And as part of that, and over the years of this council and before this council, we have made the commitment that the Hereford bypass is a necessary part of it. So I cannot agree with you about the Hereford bypass. However, I do agree with you on the active travel measures, and we are spending a substantial sum of money to try and make Hereford City and the county a better place to be able to walk, cycle and use public transport. It is not an easy thing to do, but we are trying to do it. And in the Hereford Transport Plan consultation, which finishes on the 11th, which is a few days' time, we have a commitment for about £29 million worth of spending in active travel measures in this city. So the Hereford bypass has to be part of it, but the active travel measures are also part of it. So in some ways I absolutely agree with you, but I cannot give the commitment that we are going to give up on the Hereford bypass. I apologise for that.
Thanks very much. If you just, no, I'm sorry, there's no following questions. Thank you. Mr. Cramsey, concerning climate emergency. A member champion. So, yes, would you like to come forward, Mr. Cramsey? Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to ask this question. It relates to the seriousness with which this body, the Council, holds climate and environmental related issues. The question is a simple one. Why is it that no minutes of the Herefordshire Local Nature Partnership have been published since 2015?
Leader.
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll get you a written answer as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Sorry we can't give you one now, but of course, not having quite knowledge of a particular question, we can't provide that at this moment. But it will be given to you within the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much for coming. And the next one is Mr. Bulgrave. So the matter involves council policy and climate change.
Good morning, thank you for your answer to my written question. You have seen today that people in Herefordshire are extremely concerned about climate change. Clearly, action is needed both within the county and across the country. Will you please ensure that our local MPs and the relevant central government departments are made aware of our concerns expressed here today, and ask that they note the outcome of the debate later on the subject of climate emergency, and ask for their help in developing climate action plans for Herefordshire? Thank you.
Leader.
Mr. Hargrave, thank you for your initial question and thank you for your supplementary question. I think that the first thing I would say is that Herefordshire Council has done so much already to address all of the concerns about the environment, but it's not something that we can obviously tackle on our own. It's a county-wide issue, it's a nationwide issue, it's a global issue, and so you're absolutely right to call on others to help us in our quest to become more environmentally friendly and sustainable. So absolutely, every time we have a serious issue with this council to address, we are always in contact with our MPs and always the first to ask for their support, and I know that they will be very happy to support us in addressing all of the issues that you raise. Thank you.
Concerning environment challenge, can I just clarify that I have agreed that the title should be changed to environment challenge, as that was done some weeks ago? Sorry.
I'm sorry, Chairman, but can we please get this right?
My apologies.
Moving from climate change to climate emergency. The word environment does not occur in the title.
This matter is in the hands of Councillor Selden, and I believe you want to put an alteration, Councillor Selden. Sorry, Councillor Powers.
Yes, it's me, Chairman. Thank you. And thank you for agreeing to that change in the published title, which officers admitted was a purely trivial error in the transcription from the agreed original title. But it is critical to have this word emergency in the title of the motion. I would please, before I go to proposing the motion, like under 4.1.109 of the Constitution, to make a point of order to move a further minor correction to the text itself. This is because the Constitution requires certain resolutions to be calls on the executive and not the council. and therefore Resolution A should be corrected to read, commit to an accelerated reduction of the Council's carbon emissions in place of its own carbon emissions.
Members, are you content for that alteration? Very well, that is so altered. Now, Councillor Powers, would you like to propose your motion as altered?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm going to assume that all councillors, not least because of the fantastic level of public interest in this topic, have actually read the text of the notice of motion. So I hope I can quite literally take that as read. As councillors, it's easy to spend too much time and effort looking heads down into local issues without seeing the big picture. And there is no bigger picture to consider than the planet's climate emergency. It's also easy to think or say that nothing we can do, whether as individuals, a local authority, or even a national government, will make any difference to this looming global disaster. But that's a lazy and thoroughly irresponsible attitude. Every little helps, from the personal to the local, the regional, the national, and the international. This motion calls on Herefordshire Council to play its due part and to take the lead, together with our partners and communities, in meeting the urgent demand for change. Lip service is not good enough. We must set ambitious and achievable targets, give proper resources to meeting them, and make all necessary policy changes. More than 30 other councils up and down the country, including major cities such as Manchester, Bristol, Sheffield, Oxford and Bradford, along with rural counties such as Cornwall and our own neighbours in Forest of Dean, have already passed motions very similar to this, with very similar targets, to declare a climate emergency and commit themselves to action. There will soon be more authorities, including the largest of all, the London Assembly. So let's please be one of the last authorities to recognise this crisis. Let's not be a straggler in Herefordshire. Let's join the leaders. It's been truly inspiring to see the recent strike actions of local school pupils, college students, as part of Extinction Rebellion's impressive campaign, and also the amazing turnout for the demo outside Shire Hall today, and the presence of public here in this room and next door, I hope too, with the video casting in the committee room. Because we are talking about nothing less here than the future of all young people and the prospects for every generation following. It's great to see the public gallery here so full today, and I thank you all for helping show us what we must now do. It's an honour for me to propose this motion, and I commend it to Council and look forward now to hearing the debate. Thank you.
Councillor Marsh, do you wish to second, and do you wish to speak now or later? Very well, thank you. I now move to the leader.
Thank you, Chairman. I really welcome the debate before us. Before I start, just so that we're clear on the facts that I read out, I did mention this figure of 10,000 tonnes of carbon. That's what's been saved by Herefordshire Council in the last 10 years, which is a 36% reduction. And with regard specifically to the LED lights, just wanted to make it clear that going over to LED lights will save us 12,000 tonnes of carbon CO2, within the next 20 years. So I was just reading the wrong line. But those are the facts. But as I said, I think what will be really important is if we produce this document so everybody is aware of what has been done and what is planned. So as any conscientious member of society, they will all be concerned about the environment, and we will want to enhance and protect our surroundings now and for future generations. I appreciate there is much concern about the impact of human activity that may be having on the environment, and it is right that we should seek active measures to minimise any negative impact that we make in the world in which we live in. That blue dot, as Carl Sagan so poignantly used to say, our home. There is much each of us can do to lessen our impact on the environment, absolutely, but it's a concerted effort as well. And as leader, I have reflected earlier on the fact that Herefordshire Council, as a responsible authority, has done much already and has got plans ahead to increase itself when it comes to being environmentally friendly. So we have that list which I want to publish before us, and once this is made more widely available, I am sure you will agree with me that the Council has got a great track record, but it started long ago, but we need to continue, we need to do all of the measures that we can. We do not need to waste our resources, and it is absolutely vital that we ensure that we make all of the positive steps so that we protect the well-being of our citizens and our environment. So I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
As I laid down a marker at the last February Council meeting that we absolutely need to get on top of this right at the start of the next election, and following the next election with the election of new councillors, I propose an amendment to add as F to the motion today, and it would read along these lines. The Council requests the Executive to arrange a full-day interactive seminar for all councillors this year to be briefed on and discuss the options that might be open to Herefordshire Council to expedite its carbon footprint reduction aspiration and improve further the natural environment of Herefordshire. I hope you will accept it and put it to the vote. It is absolutely necessary that we get involved at the earliest opportunity to make sure that the policies of this council continue along the lines that we're at, and that we can actually make changes in the next administration. Thank you.
Councillor Price, I note the amendment. I'm not going to progress it at the moment because the Constitution requires that there is a fair debate on the original motion before we entertain any amendment. Councillor Summers.
Yes, I'll be very brief, Chair. While I appreciate there may be a higher immediate cost attached to the following, I am mostly concerned with what we are leaving for our young people. I understand the Council has the power to insist that building regulations are in place to make sure construction values meet the highest possible environmental standards. A good place to start would be in the enterprise zone with a new local development order. Perhaps asking the planning department to reevaluate some of the policies might be worth looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Selden.
Thank you, Chair. Pre-2011, this council used to have an environment scrutiny committee where we used to receive regular reports on emissions from everything from buildings to up to and including our own closed landfill waste sites. I think we should do that again so we can keep a close eye on what this council is emitting. But of course, it's not just about carbon emissions, it's more increasingly about the amount of plastic we use and discharge into the environment. It's been shown quite conclusively that microplastics poison the oceans. Now, I think that's another area where we should be monitoring what kind of plastic that we use and how we dispose of it. And on the subject of oceans, only yesterday on Radio 4, there was an article that said this winter it has been raining in Greenland. That might not seem startling, but for it to be raining in a place like Greenland in the winter is quite shocking. Because the effect of that would be that a layer of dark ice will form on top of the snow, and it will absorb far more energy during the summer months. And just so you'd be aware that if all the ice melts on Greenland, Herefordshire will have a coastline.
Councillor Ginman.
It'll come as no surprise to Council, given the question I put down the last time, which actually mentioned the words climate emergency, that I'm going to support this point today. I have absolutely no qualms in supporting the motion. I've had the benefit over the last few years of working with Endeavour and regularly being lectured on the subject by the chief scientists and seeing some of the science that's thereby come around. I would like to put on record my big thank you to those who take the time and trouble to so politely and constructively write to me, send me emails on this subject. And the engagement on this surpasses most of my other activities, bar one or two planning applications where it has to be said that perhaps the postbag are a little heavier. But I do appreciate the involvement. And can I put a plea out here? This is not a party political subject. This is a subject that is for humanity. It goes beyond parties. We must work together. And if I may close by quoting Ban Ki-moon's, the 8th Secretary General of the UN, the costs of adapting are less than the cost of doing business as usual, and the benefits many times larger.
Councillor Chowns.
I'd like to join colleagues in paying tribute and thanking all of the members of the public who've come along today, in this room, in the other room, outside this morning. Really fantastic to see that level of public engagement with this issue and with the work of the Council. Brilliant. I don't think there's ever been such a high level of public presence in this room, certainly not for the past, decade or more, and perhaps not ever. I think it's also very heartening to see the energy for asking questions of the Council and Cabinet members. A really important job to do in holding this Council to account and reminding us all that we're here to be accountable to members of the public. There's no need for me to repeat any statistics on climate change. You're all very familiar with the evidence, as Councillor Ginman has said. We know there's an overwhelming scientific consensus on the scale and the urgency of the climate emergency. What we need now is political will to take the action that the science tells us is needed. It's true that there's been some progress in the last years. I recognise and I celebrate that both locally and at a wider level. That action's come about as a result of earlier activism of the sort that we've seen on the steps of this chamber today. As a lifelong Green with a small g, I'm delighted when others take on board these ideas, and as Councillor Ginman has said, this is not a party political issue, it's something that we should all be able to unite around. It's also true that action's needed at all levels and across the world, but we too need to do more. We bear a historic responsibility for getting us to this point. In one sense, this motion is not a radical motion. You've seen the list of other councils that have signed up to similar motions, and so I really hope that we're going to be able to take a unanimous decision in support of this today. But it is a vitally important motion because it seeks to increase our level of ambition and action. It's too easy to put off that action into the future. It's too easy to pay lip service to the ideas and not translate it into action. I have to confess, I found the Executive's response to some of the public questions rather disappointing. The idea that the action is to pass the buck to a committee that will be reformed after the next election and will then do a bit of scrutiny of this. What we're looking to the leadership for is leadership on this. And so, Councillor Lester, while the Herefordshire Council has already done things on climate change, what the people in this room are asking for is not a document listing those existing achievements or existing plans. They're asking for more. They're asking for evidence that you... So I call on all of us to demonstrate that we will do this. First, by reflecting on how we'll translate that commitment, that understanding of the climate emergency into all of the decisions that we take on a day-to-day basis, where we don't have dozens, hundreds of people holding us to account directly, but as a first step by supporting this motion as a signal of intent and commitment. Thank you.
Colleagues, if I can just clarify what happens now, is it's at this point that I'm accepting the amendment to be put forward. I will invite the proposer of the motion to consider it along with the seconder, and whether they are prepared to accept the amendment without debate. If they do, I will then move on to the others that I've got waiting from Councillor Rowan down. If they don't, we will debate that particular paragraph and see how we go from there. So, Councillor Price, can you please put your proposed amendment again?
Thank you, Chairman. It's very simple, and I hope we might be able to go straight to without debate. The Council requests the Executive to arrange a full-day interactive seminar for all councillors this year to be briefed on and discuss the options that might be open to Herefordshire Council to expedite its carbon footprint reduction aspiration and improve further the natural environment of Herefordshire.
Councillor Powers, are you prepared to accept that? Is it the seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor McEverley. Councillor Powers, are you prepared to accept it?
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm grateful for Councillor Price's proposed amendment. Yes, I am prepared to accept it, but can I suggest to Councillor Price that in the light of what has been already said today, and in the spirit of the motion itself, that the words "this year" are replaced by the words "as soon as possible"?
You mean before or after the election?
Yes,
As soon as possible.
as soon as possible, but it will have to be after the election. I'm sorry, there is not time to be able to convene a seminar of all of the people that are going to be the decision makers going forward at this moment in time. So I absolutely accept what you're saying.
If it's impossible, it's impossible, but as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, I accept.
So the words "as soon as possible," you're content for the to be in the amendment. Councillor Marsh, do you agree with the amendment as well? Very well. That amendment will become part of the substantive motion if you all agree. Do you all agree? Thank you. I call on Councillor Rowan.
Thank you, Chair. There's an awful lot of consensus in the Chamber, and quite rightly too. This is a subject that our children may wonder why we didn't act upon earlier. I'm sure all colleagues here have carried out their own research into the climate emergency issue that is before us, but the responsibility does not end with a vote today. We may be committing this council to expenditure which will have to be found from a departmental budget, all of which are under pressure. So before any of us think that by voting today it is job done, can I ask that we as individuals and as community leaders do and reflect personally on our respective footprints? How many of us walked or cycled in this morning? How many car shared? Who has used their position to campaign for a reduction in single-use plastics? Have any of us written to local supermarkets to highlight our throwaway society and ask what they are doing about it? Who takes their own reusable coffee cup with them when they visit their favourite coffee shop, even though there are incentives on offer to do so? Who takes a water bottle, a reusable water bottle into meetings rather than a single-use plastic one? In its simplest, absolutely basic form, which of us go out litter picking on a regular basis? Which of us in this chamber supported the Stop the Drop litter team to back up the message around litter, recyclables and the damage to our environment when they visited one of the schools in your constituency? That's a big question. How many of us have reduced our intake of red meat? How many of us are aware of food miles and therefore make an effort to shop local and or seasonally? Chair, I could go on. We can all make little changes that add up. As my son William says, turn the TV standby off, Dad, otherwise that red light will be burning all night. Now, we all hear the old adage that China and India are still building coal-fired power stations. Is that a reason for us not to act? No, it's not. But we must realise that the biggest challenge we have as a county is our ageing population, which will absolutely have a profound effect both socially and financially. So when we do vote today, let's not just fire off our vote and forget it, forget our responsibility. It's much, much bigger than that. Thank you.
Councillor Chapel.
Chairman, this is the most important notice of motion to come before Council, and it must be taken seriously. Our generation inherited this world, and we have a duty to pass it on to the next generation, at least as good as the state that we took it over. And as councillors, we need to show leadership to residents of Herefordshire to reduce the carbon levels. We need to do that now. We do have a proud record as council of already doing things, but we can do more by our leadership. So let's stop the chat and let's lead. We must encourage developers to build homes that are environmentally friendly. For every 100 homes, let's plant 200 trees and shrubs around the area. Our planning policies must include the installation of 2 ULEV charging points for cars for every 50 houses built in a development. We must encourage schools to stagger their hours, some starting earlier than now, some later, to avoid traffic congestion at peak time. But yes, that will mean encouraging employers to be flexible in their working hours. It happens on the continent, it can happen here. The majority of employees in this county work shifts in factories, the hospital, police, and there are other employers operating shift systems. They need to review whether their employees are contributing to carbon emissions and how they can help that. It needs leadership. Leadership now from every one of us here. We have to have the courage to be bold, and people may not like, the public may not like some of the suggestions that have been made. But by adopting this notice of motion today, we will be showing that leadership to our partners and our commitment to future generation. And we've heard the future generation earlier in this meeting. I think it is a fitting way to end this last meeting of this council by supporting this notice of motion, and a great start for the new council elected in May.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm more than happy to support this, and I'm glad that I hope that Herefordshire Council will follow Kington and unanimously pass this particular motion. Can I say also, I'm pleased that we've got the amendment, well, it's an addendum, not an amendment really, but that's nitpicking, because ultimately it's what we do, not what we say, that matters. And so often it is, we've heard ad nauseum about LED lights, but very little else. I mean, I did mention at the previous meeting that, you know, why aren't we installing all electric cars for the council's vehicles, etc. Numerous things like that. I think when we come to the end, we should have, in the new council, at the end of every period, there should be an audit of what we've actually achieved. Not of what we've said we've done, or said we're going to do, but what we've actually done. Have we reduced the number of diesel and petrol cars? Have we, etc., etc.? So at the end of a year, we can mark our own achievements and see how much we've done. Because so often, we talk a good talk, but we don't actually deliver on what we're saying.
Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Price replied earlier to Ms Setterfield Milne saying that Herefordshire must grow its economy, as justification for pursuing 19th century transport projects in a 21st century. It's ironic that so many people with only an informed view of the past are in charge of taking enormously important investment decisions affecting Herefordshire's future. As councillors, we come together as this council to hold the county collectively in our hands, and Councillor Price's amendment does offer the opportunity for the new council to start off better informed on this issue, which can only be a good thing. I spent most of my working life working on advanced technologies and forecasting national and global strategic threats for defence and security. Consequently, I can say with confidence that fossil-fuelled vehicles and even personal electric vehicles do not form part of our future. More roads are not the answer. Many of the councillors in this room won't like this news and probably will choose not to believe this inconvenient truth. I have personally invested in biomass heating, solar and thermal energy systems, rainwater harvesting and insulation of my home. I realise the personal cost of doing this and recognise my personal responsibility to reduce, reuse and recycle. I became a councillor because my professional activities gave me a clear and frightening view of the challenges and threats coming at us out of the future, climate change being but one of many. I hope this knowledge would enable me to help this council make wise investments and prepare Herefordshire for this future and to do what we can to avert some of the worst possibilities. This council has implemented a number of good energy saving projects in the recent past and has managed to meet its existing carbon reduction target trend. But the reality is, talking about whether we actually do what we say, is that the electric car charging points outside this very building have been out of service for more than a year with no sight of repair. The main motion is an opportunity for councillors to clearly commit this council to an accelerated action programme, while we all retain the authority to represent the interests of the people of this county here in the room today. I sincerely hope that a majority of current councillors support this motion, but if you do not, the residents of Herefordshire can take some small comfort from the fact that the Itzard County Shadow Budget contains a raft of sustainable and resilient policies for the county's future, and with the support of the public, we will be able to implement these and many more initiatives after the May elections.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm absolutely delighted to support this, and I'm very pleased that it's here. I cut a trip down to see my grandchildren in Kent to be here this morning to be able to vote for this. It's clearly got great support in the Chamber and from the public and elsewhere. I'm delighted with this. However, we have to implement it and see it through, which has been said by others this morning. Just a reflection on the notice of motion, which is very well worded, and I thank the author, and the addendum, which I think is welcome, because my grandchildren, for example, one of whom is 10 and the other one is 7, I spent the week with them. I went into their school library last week, and it was amazing how many books dealt with the environment. And what was concerning my grandchildren was pollution both in the air and in the sea, and the fish, how they were suffering, and the plastic in and around the globe. So when we look at the addendum and education, instruction, these children are way ahead of us. They are already up to speed with what's going on. I spoke to her about Extinction Rebellion. She knew quite well what it was, and they have lots of recycling and reusing facilities both at their school and in their house. So, for example, we are leaving this not just to our children, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It's they that matter, and we have to do our bit for them. We have a duty of care to them. Everybody must support this notice of motion. Thank you.
In which case, I'll go to Councillor Marsh. You've already spoken, haven't you?
Chair, no, I haven't. And I've really relished the
Right.
the chance.
Okay, please carry on.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for a great debate. Can I just start by saying, gosh, what a difference a couple of days makes. And I'm really heartened to hear so many, what seems to be changes of mind around the room. When myself and Councillor Warmington sat in scrutiny 2 days ago and were told that in our overarching vision for Herefordshire and our overarching documents that the environment probably wasn't an issue in its own right. And we were voted down 5-2. I have to say, some of that was carried on, that feeling, that a negative feeling I had was carried on when I heard the answer to question 6 by Councillor Price, to say that it's the economic growth that is of prime concern to us. I do note the extra piece that's been put onto this motion, and I fully approve of it. We've got to talk about this. But what I would say, we've got a little bit away from the bare bones and the nuts and bolts of this motion. And what we are doing here today is, this is about taking a different step. It's being part of a step change. It's not about all the little steps that we can do. It's not about being able to talk about it at scrutiny, and it's again a shame that Councillor Price didn't take it. Sorry, and I apologise if anybody's missed part of what I was saying. So, it's a shame that this didn't actually go directly onto scrutiny's work list for the next year 2 days ago when there was an opportunity, but I welcome that it is going to go on now. What I wanted to say was, this motion is about being part of a step change. It's not about a set of small steps that we may or may not want to say that we are doing. This is about what we are, who we are at the highest level. This very much is about moving us as part of a global movement to move our economic model whereby we get to a triple bottom line economic model when the environment is given exactly the same weight in its own right as the economy, as the social arena, because without maximising all three of those, we cannot have a sustainable and secure Herefordshire within a sustainable and secure world. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all who've taken part in this debate and to those hanging on there in the grand jury room, those outside and everyone here. Thank you so much. As we all know, this builds on a strong legacy of partnership and action to address climate change, and this is really the opportunity to take the next step that sadly science dictates we need to take. It's a great time to renew the Council's pact with the wider community of business, education and the voluntary sector. They all joined Councillor Phillips and our Chief Executive Alistair Neil, who signed us up in 2013 to the Re-Energised Charter, committing to the National Climate Act reduction target of 80% by 2050. And as we've heard, there's such a lot of common ground across this chamber. We're grateful to XR for pushing for this. And like many people, it's really important to mention this is going to be a long haul. This isn't a one-day motion. This is something we all need to be involved in. And when I say all, we need all the skills we've got. It doesn't matter if you can't litter pick. We need artists, scientists, marketers, storytellers, technologists, futurologists, engineers, cooks, farmers. We need everyone's real talents and skills to reimagine and re-engineer how we address our world and how we dance with what we thought was waste and make it into something new. So It's a great moment to go on this because the carbon management plan and the home energy conservation plan are coming towards an end. There are many other strategies that can play an important role. So Councillor Price's amendment is very timely. We need to be collaborative and not confrontational. We need to acknowledge that money is short, but luckily we have innovation and ingenuity. We have been very effective in using grants that are available. We may need to go on and look at how loans, which enable money to be recircled to insulate many houses or many buildings, can be used. Innovation and ingenuity are a hallmark of our population. We need that. We'll need the practical talents of the NMIT students as they come along, the radical reimagining of the HTA students who've already wowed the European Commission. And what we're looking for is win-win-wins. We've talked about energy-efficient buildings, less cost, less carbon, healthier people. Moving on a step, what if single-person car trips became as unfashionable as single-use plastics? A move to effective lift sharing would mean less loneliness, less congestion, less pollution, saving on fuels and reduced emissions, plus a more attractive environment for pedestrians and cyclists. We need all kinds of big ideas like that with multiple pluses. So this motion is a gateway. It builds on our strong base of leadership on the issue to renewed long-term collaboration, concentration and creativity. Let's open it.
Councillor Powers.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to all who have contributed to what I think has been a very good debate on this quite literally critical matter. We have heard a lot from various quarters about what this council has already done and what has already happened. This motion begins by recognising that, but what is really important now is, as has been said, what we today commit to do in the future. And this, I hope, is the beginning of that. So for starters, someone mentioned plans ahead. I hope that plans ahead will today include adopting this motion and unanimously. None of this is about virtue signalling, but we cannot kick this particular can down the road. As far as costs are concerned, yes, there may be some additional costs to these commitments. This is one of those things that we can't afford not to do and to take seriously. And I would also like to stress that by committing today to this motion and to recognise the climate emergency, the Council will, I believe, be able to access inward investment opportunities for itself, which will help to meet or possibly even overreach any costs which may be a fear in some people's minds. That's to do with money costs. There are immeasurable other costs to ourselves and our responsibilities if we don't recognise the emergency which this motion is focused on today. So thank you all again. I thank you for all contributions, and in closing I would like to call please for a named vote on this item.
I think it's a foregone conclusion, but can I please have 8 others to join? Thank you. It will be a named vote. And before that named vote is taken, can I just explain what I anticipate, how I intend to proceed? It's now 12:20. This debate has gone on its own for an hour and a quarter. It's been a great debate. I reflect on the Rio summit when the council that I was with before brought out the acronym of WHAM, what happens after me, and that went up to the House of Lords. So I'm very interested as well. I don't normally comment on debate, but it's been a great debate. At 12:30, we will reconvene after a 10-minute break, and anyone is welcome to stay and listen to the other 2 debates on motions, and then we've got the leaders' report. So I anticipate, with the meeting's consent, of continuing to 1:30. providing the two other motions can be limited in length. But we will need to go over them 1.5 hours normally allowed. Is everyone content with that? Thank you very much. We'll now go to the name vote.
I shall call out the names of all members present and request that they clearly state whether they are for or against or are abstaining from voting. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Baker. Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Bowen.
For.
Councillor Bowes. Councillor Bramer. Councillor Butler. Councillor Chappell.
For.
Councillor Chowns. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Crockett. Councillor Cutter.
For.
Councillor Durkin. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Gandy. Councillor Guthrie. Councillor Harvey. Councillor James. Councillor Ginman. Councillor A. Johnson. Councillor J. Johnson. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Lester. Councillor Lloyd Hayes. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Matthews. Councillor McEvely. Councillor Newman. Councillor Norman. Councillor North. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Powers. Councillor Price. Councillor Rowan. Councillor Selden. Councillor Shaw. Councillor Stone. Councillor Summers. Councillor Swinglehurst. Councillor Warmington. Councillor Wilcox. Councillor Williams.
As you might imagine, that is unanimous with 43 for, nil against, nil abstentions.